The morning I signed the papers for the little Victorian on Elm Hollow, a woman from down the street handed me a pie and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and she said, almost casual, "We don't welcome trouble here." I laughed, because who hands a stranger a pie and a thread at the same time? But that laugh got stuck somewhere between the porch and the driveway, and 7 months later, I was standing in mud up to my boots watching the same woman tell the sheriff she'd do whatever it takes to make me leave. That's when I knew this wasn't about grass clippings or a mailbox rule. This was about money, and it was personal. My name's Jack Mercer. I'm a contractor. I fix things for a living, and I bought that house because my little weekend place for my girl had a crooked porch and good bones and the kind of light you only get in old houses. I wanted a place where she could run barefoot in summer and learn to hang a picture straight, small, dumb, beautiful plants. I did not expect a full-scale campaign to take my life apart, but that's what happened, slow and precise, like somebody laying a foundation with the intent to bury the building later. At first it was paperwork, a certified notice about a safety concern, a neighbor's complaint about a leaning fence, a city inspector who happened to be in the area. Then the contractors started calling, saying things like, "We can't, tour crew isn't comfortable," and the texts got stranger. Anonymous messages that said the community would not tolerate changes. I chalked it up to nerves or bad timing, until I found the easement clause in the survey, the one that made my gut drop. There was a fiber optic right-of-way stitched across half my property, something that should have been disclosed months earlier, and suddenly, where there was a home, there was leverage. That leverage had a face. Lorraine Pike, well-manicured, sharp laugh, and a volunteer at the neighborhood association who knew exactly how to frame a rumor as a public safety issue. She organized petitions with names that were familiar, people who walked their dogs past my porch, and then, like clockwork, the petitions became official concerns with the city. Behind the petitions, though, was a shell corporation, and behind the corporation was a developer with a plan to buy small parcels and stitch them together. It smelled like greed, and Lorraine smelled like the person who'd been handed the short end of the stick and decided to sharpen it. What I learned after the pie was this: small-town civility can be a smokescreen for something meaner. Lorraine would show up with a casserole and a council letter, and she'd speak in that velvet voice about community standards, while the people she'd convinced to sign petitions thought they were protecting their property values. When the contractors backed out and my insurance put our renovations on hold, it wasn't abstract anymore, it was my life hollowing out in real time. The little girl I'd planned weekends with was suddenly in the middle of a fight she didn't ask for. Now I won't pretend I was perfect. I snapped at people, signed something in anger, left a terse voicemail when I should have kept calm. But the harassment crossed the line when someone keyed my truck, when the swing set, a cheap thing I'd put together myself, was found slashed, and when I got a text that read, "Maybe you should just sell." That's when I knew it wasn't neighbors being neighbors. It was a campaign to make living there so expensive and untenable that selling would look like the only sane choice. The funny part, not funny at all, was how organized it became. Phone calls to licensing boards alleging unsafe work, an anonymous complaint to CPS about children living in an unsafe situation that sent a social worker to our door, the bank asking for extra paperwork out of nowhere. Everything was a tiny cut, and cuts add up. So we did what anyone who's been pushed in a corner should do. We gathered proof. My partner Vicky, calm, stubborn, the kind of person who keeps receipts for emotions, started collecting timestamps, contractor emails, screenshots of social posts, and the receipts of every interaction that could be traced. We set up cameras in places they wouldn't notice, and we saved every voice message. We built a file, not just of the harassment, but of the motive. And here comes the part that feels like a movie, but is just paperwork and bad people. We traced the shell company to a developer named Hargrove Developments, a name that came up in a public hearing about parcel aggregation. We matched signatures and invoices. We made a map that connected Lorraine's petition to Hargrove's proposed purchase path. It wasn't conjecture anymore. It was math and paper and recorded voices, and the kind of inconvenient truth that makes polite folks break their smiles. So we set a trap. Not one of those grand schemes you only see in movies, but a practical, dumb people-proof plan. Keep the town meeting public, invite the press, have the inspection go on record, and make sure there were witnesses when the harassment happened. We coordinated with a friendly reporter who'd been sniffing around for a human story, and we fed them a timeline. We made sure the city inspector would show, and we had our evidence digitally ready. Every timestamped photo and every anonymous text lined up like dominoes. On the day Lorraine decided to turn her social habit into spectacle, she did it with the same polished cruelty she'd used to hand me that pie. She stood on my lawn, in a sundress that was as clean as her hands, and she raised her voice about community standards while cameras rolled. Someone who I still think of as a quiet hero rigged a harmless irrigation line to go off when she crossed the threshold she'd been warned not to. The sprinkler burst, the mud flew, and for the first time the community saw Lorraine off her balance, sliding, her perfectly arranged hair streaked with dirt. She yelled something about, "We'll see who takes this house," and the voice recorder on a neighbor's phone captured her saying, plain as daylight, "We'll make them sell if we have to. Hargrove will take it off their hands." There it was, motive and admission live. The sheriff's cruiser that had been idling down the street pulled up. The reporter started asking the questions that, for months, had been muffled behind decency. The cameras kept rolling as Lorraine, flustered and furious, tried to turn the story back into a neighborhood concern. But you can't unring a bell, and you can't take back a recorded confession when it's paired with a map of linked transactions. The fallout was messy and quick in a way that felt blessed. Hargrove's offer evaporated from public record under scrutiny. The city opened an investigation into the coordinated complaints, and the contractors started coming back with sheepish looks, as if they hadn't had a part in it all. Lorraine resigned her post on the neighborhood board the next week. She kept her pie recipes, I guess. We got a small restitution for the swing set and a letter from the city clearing our permits. None of that ever felt like a win that healed what had been done. There were still broken fences and sideways glances at the grocery store, and the stains of what happened didn't wipe off the porch. What I want you to hear is this. Sometimes what looks like community is actually a power game, and power games have faces and signatures and spreadsheets. They're not random. They're planned. And they hurt real people who just wanted a quiet life with a little porch light on Friday nights. We could have folded. We could have sold. I won't sugarcoat that the pressure was real enough to make selling tempting, but we chose to fight with evidence, with patience, and with a stubborn belief that if you can show the truth, it matters. I don't expect everyone to agree with every choice we made. Some will say we escalated, that the sprinkler trick was childish. Maybe it was. But when polite requests become a raft of anonymous strikes designed to drive someone off their land, you stop playing by the old rules. You play to survive. You protect your family. You make the ugly visible. So where does that leave us now? The porch's paint is half dry, the swing set is new, and the neighborhood still has Lorraine's old house on the corner, clean windows, tidy hedges, the pie smell somehow still in the air. People still whisper, some congratulating us, some saying we made enemies. The bank's pressure has eased. The kids play over on my lawn on summer evenings, and my girl laughs when I tell her about the day the lady slipped in the mud, but I never show her the footage. That part of the fight I keep adult, because there's a line between teaching someone to stand up and dragging them into someone else's cruelty. If you've been through anything like this, a neighbor who became a campaign, a bureaucracy that was weaponized, a community that looked friendly but was anything but, I want to hear it. Tell me what you would have done, or what you did. Was justice served, or did the real winners just change their tactics? Drop a comment with your take on right and wrong here. Did we do the right thing, or should we have walked away? Share if you know someone who's had their home threatened by a quiet, organized squeeze. And if you're on the fence, ask yourself this. When a small kindness comes with a smile, is it a neighborly gesture or a warning?